message is specifically for my girlies who are 35 plus. If you want to be married and start a family, if that's something that's still on your bingo card, okay, you want to make it happen, you got to date a man who can. You no longer have the time to build with him, to wait for him to get the house, wait for him to get the promotion, wait for him to get the money, because time is of the essence. I met my husband when I was 37. He was 48 and he was already in a position. He already owned a home. He already had the cars. He already had the career. He already had the money. He didn't have to save up to get me a ring. He didn't have to save up to pay for the wedding. He didn't have to try to go get a house to put me in. He was ready to go. And a lot of people judge me for this. Well, some men judge me for this because they like, oh, you didn't want to build, you didn't want to grow. I didn't have the time. Y'all love to jump down women's throats and be like, oh, you waited till you were old and you waited until your eggs were dry, and all the negative comments that I get from bitter, angry men online. But yeah, I didn't have the time. I had to skip the line. How you're going to skip the line, ladies, is you have to date the man who can. If he still has to get somewhere, okay, if he's still trying to work it out, and especially if he's a man who's 45 plus, if he hasn't really figured out how to make money and sustain himself and do a little bit better, it's probably not going to happen. And I'm not saying that those men are not worthy of love or someone. Maybe they need to get with somebody who's maybe a little younger than you, because they might have more time to invest into his growth overall. They might have more time.
All right, welcome back to the channel. And so let's dive right in. So at the very beginning, for those that are new, I talk to both men and women. So you're going to get a little bit different flow from me, but all the people that have been hanging out with me for a while, hey, welcome back. So let's get to it. So the very first thing is for the ladies. I definitely agree with about 95% of what this woman is saying. Now, I definitely encourage women to start as early as possible dating for marriage. I do not believe that your 20s are a time for you to grow, to have fun, to do this, to do that. You can have fun with your husband. I'm always, trying to encourage women about that, and to get away from the feminist narrative that is saying, hey, let's have fun, the guys are doing it, blah, 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 because that's not really true. Most guys that are doing what they're supposed to do in their 20s, they're actually growing. They're actually trying to get their money. They're actually trying to get their hustle. All right. So a lot of men in their 20s really aren't playing. And what I find is that most people that play in their 20s really don't get to enjoy their 30s and 40s. Their 20s is the time to really lock down certain things and to start to move toward growth. So that being said, because she'd already talked about, the fact that people kind of beat her up for that. So most of the rest of what she said, I agree with. And remember, she dated and married an older man. I really wish a lot more black women would be open to marrying an older guy. And when I say older, I'm generally talking about somewhere between 7 to maybe 13 to 14 years older. As you start to get closer to that 20-year mark, a lot of differences are there. And I'll be honest with you, you also have to be concerned about mortality, because at a certain point, he is going to die. His body is going to fall apart. And so what happens, if both people are really taking care of themselves, and we're just going to say, for instance, that both people will live to a nice age of like 90. But even if he lived to 90 years old and you live to 90 years old and he's 10 years older than you, then that means that, boom, you're going to have 10 years of your life by yourself, right? Okay, and those are going to be some very lonely years, some very older years. And then it's harder to find a person when you're 80 years old to try to find like a second husband. So you have to think like that. But I will also say sometimes it's just better to go ahead and dive on in. Because you could be waiting, trying to find this perfect scenario person, and then you could have wasted 7 years of your life or 10 years of your life when you could have actually started your family. And then when you're 80, maybe you don't have your husband anymore, but you have your children and your grandchildren. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but a lot of black women really kind of move down this line of thinking where they're believing that men that are older are going to try to take advantage of them. And what I want to tell you on that is, ladies, there's really no difference when it comes to men and their age. If a man does not have maturity by the time he's 25, more than likely he's never going to have it throughout the rest of his life. I know a lot of people are going to argue me over that, and that's fine. Knock it out in the comments. But in reality, your parents' job is to basically train you up in the right way that you're supposed to go. If they haven't done that job, by the time the person's 18, they still got about 7 or 8 years they can kind of figure out, oh, well, mama was right on this. Oh, dang it, daddy was right on this. And so they start to self-correct. But if they have not self-corrected by 25, 28-ish, then more than likely they're not going to self-correct. They're actually heading down a path, and that's probably going to be the path for the rest of their life. And that kind of lines up with what she is saying. So definitely, I would encourage women to date older. And then when it comes to women, definitely over 32, 35-ish. You cannot wait for a man to get his life together. All right. So now let's flip and let's go to the man's side. Like she said, that there's a lot of men that are upset about this. But guys, you should not be upset about this. First of all, you should want and desire to be able to date younger. All right. So if you're 45, okay, why are you worried about trying to date a 45-year-old woman? You can date a 35-year-old woman. So again, what's the problem here? So I believe that for a lot of guys, you have to understand you got to get your money right. You got to get your life right. I've always encouraged you all to basically either go back to school or to start a business. And you need to know whether or not you're the type of person that is going to be able to make this business work, or if you're the type of person that just kind of needs to give it up and just go ahead and start working for somebody or continue to work for somebody or try to upgrade yourself in whatever job. And I know, just being real, a lot of men do not want to go back to school. I ain't gonna lie. I don't want to go back to school. And, my dad's been getting on me about it. A lot of people have been getting on me about it because they're like, you should go get your master's degree, because I already have my bachelor's. But, I do think like that. I'm like, well, maybe I should, blah, 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 blah. And I'm at least making that consideration. Now, I am a little bit more entrepreneurial, and I know I'll put in the work in order to make things happen. But for many of you, you don't want to put in the work. And I'm also going to be real. Don't let anybody fool you. AI is coming to take jobs. So if you do a job where you work with your hands or you're just on the phone all day, like at a call service, these AI systems are coming to take your job. So in about 10 years or even less, you might not have a job, period. So I just want to give you that nugget. In truth, a woman to me should never really be worried about helping a man at that level. Now, I'm always about a woman helping a man. Don't get me wrong. I want a woman to be supportive of her husband. I believe that that's one of the tenets that most men are looking for. But at the same time, guys, you have to be on a path for her to help you. You can't say, oh man, I always wanted to start a fitness company. I think I could do that joint right because, I've been watching and I've been working out for a long time. And I just believe, that one day, man, I can make that happen. No. See, at that point, you're not on a path. You're talking. Anybody can talk. Talk is cheap. Okay. But what you have to do is you have to get on the path. Now, if you are talking to banks about loans, if you are, starting your own YouTube where you're doing fitness, if you are starting to do research on what it takes to actually make this happen, see, now you're on the road. And see, when you're on the road, then yes, a woman should be willing to come in and help you. But if she's not willing to come in and help you, then I would agree with you 100%. Get rid of her because you don't want a woman that is not supportive. But a woman, everything within a woman is all about very intrinsic timing. So it's really important for her to hit milestones when she can hit them. And it's easy to beat women up and say, well, oh, you was working on your career, blah, 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 blah. And that's true. And some of those women have done that. But there are women, and we've talked about this before, like introverted women, and a lot of introverted women and women that don't come out much and stuff like that. A lot of them really haven't been pushing their careers. They've just not known where to go. They don't know how to meet a guy. There are other women who got messed up with one guy and he was the wrong guy, and they wasted 7 years of their life, dealing with this loser. And so there's a lot of different reasons. I don't want to always just lump women into this one category of working on your careers. Because remember, guys, even when we say things like only 7% of men make over $150,000, we really have to say the same thing about women. only 7% of women make over $150,000. See, right now, this whole conversation is not about the uber successful woman. I believe she is an uber successful woman, but most black women are not these uber successful women. And there are plenty of women sitting around trying to figure out, okay, how do I find my man? So we kind of have to look at it, in the context of what it was given. Now, if she had talked about how she was trying to do generational wealth and how she was trying to make all this money and how she wanted to live a certain lifestyle, then I would 100% be agreement. Like, you wasted your time. You did this, you did that. But anytime I make an argument, I have to make the argument not necessarily based off the person, but what the person is saying in this moment so that we can actually get that information out and that we can grow with that info, right? So for women, definitely, if you are 32 and over, you should be looking for a man that can basically wife you up and settle down. Not necessarily yesterday, but we'll say within a year and a half. All right. And if you're a guy that's over, 32, 35, you should be dating younger, and women really need to be dating older. And you should be taking time to build up whatever money, whatever skills, whatever it is that you try to do, go back to school, blah, blah, blah. Or if you are 100% just like, look, I like my job, I like what I'm doing, I'm okay with that. As long as you are in control of your money and your money is not in control of you. And it's like I've told you before, you could be a garbage man. You could be somebody who sweeps, up the park. I don't really give a flip. I mean, you could be flipping burgers at McDonald's. If you manage your money well, and I've actually put up some videos about budgeting, and if you budget your money well, you can make that money stretch. And you might get you a couple of little things here and there, to add to that, and you can make a life for yourself. The key is to make sure that you're budgeting. And then when you date, especially for the guys, because as a guy, you don't want to date a woman that just, makes all this money. And I know some of you guys, that's your frustration. And like I've told you all before, a lot of women that are instinct based, they're actually very attractive. And so when you're out and about, these women are out and about as well, because many of them are extroverted. And so you see them, and it's easy to get access to them as far as seeing them. But then when you start to have conversations with them, you find out this woman makes 3 times as much as you. She's looking for a certain type of lifestyle, and she wants certain things at certain times. And then you might be frustrated because you're like, wow, she's beautiful. She has no kids. She has this, that, and the third. And she's kind of like what I'm looking for. But the problem is you're not what she's looking for. And you shouldn't be upset because you're not what she's looking for. There's a lot of women I've explained to you all in a lot of videos. I have dated like 3 millionaires. Seriously, they were millionaires here in Atlanta. And they all were from different backgrounds and wanted different things. But the bottom line was I did talk to them. I did date them. And I wasn't mad at them for not wanting to date me. I might have been upset that because like one of them was really rude. Once I told her, I wasn't on that level, she was like, and doing all this other kind of stuff. So yeah, I was a little perturbed about her. But actually the one that made the most money, this lady who made her money in real estate, she was actually nice about it. She was like, oh, I think you're a really great guy. I think you're going to make a really great, husband for somebody because you definitely have husband traits. But, you're not really kind of what I'm looking for. And it had nothing to do with money, actually. It just had to do with, our energies didn't match. Our personalities didn't match. So, that was why, she decided to go another way. So you should not get upset, when these women say this, because there's plenty of women at all different levels. OK, and so I think that's the key. And if you decide to go overseas, again, that's fine. The only thing, remember, that I warn you all when you go overseas is that instinct-driven women, because I know a lot of you are trying to get away from instinct-driven women, and a lot of instinct-driven women are overseas. OK, they're all over the place. Every culture has them. But again, to get back to the ladies, just remember, I do agree with what she's saying. You have to watch out for that. And I always, always, always am going to be encouraging Black women to expand who they're trying to date. It's the same thing with height. Please get out of this height thing. Ladies, if you're over 5'6", you're tall. So you might have to date a guy who is your height. Okay. And if you can look on TV and say something like, oh, Bruno Mars is kind of cute, or Prince is kind of cute, both of those men are short. All right. So if you can look on TV and say you think that those men are attractive, okay, and those men are probably what, like 5'3", 5'4" ish in person, then you can be attracted to them. So you can get, out of your mind, because you kind of have to open your dating pool, and you can't tighten it to the point where no man can get in there, or you really will be alone. And that's when men start to say you have unrealistic expectations. And remember, the average height of a man is 5'9". It is not 6'2". That's what they push in the movies and in books. Please like and subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.